All right,
when
guys, welcome to SE and Scrappy for, I don't know what episode, doesn't matter. Lucas, it has been a busy week. Things have kicked off. We have a lot going on. Division II, Division I, college wrestling, high school wrestling started in Alabama and Georgia. Mississippi started as well. The other states are getting ready to start. Florida's a little bit behind them. But man, just chaos in terms of tons of stuff going on.
yeah, lots of stuff going on. Kicking off very funny verbiage with the responses we've had to some of our stuff as of late. Kicking off, I think, is fitting. When it comes to episodes, man, we're approaching the big 5-0.
Yeah. No,
I think this is 30 or 31.
And it's good, it's good. It's one of those things where, again, we simply just talk about what we want to talk about. Was
Awesome. I love this.
Wrestling or whatever. But you're right. We I posted the rankings last week. The Southeast rankings. We've been posting different things on the website, and we've gotten a few responses. You now get to see that side of things.
Which I'm gonna keep saying the same thing to people. You don't like it so much. You put your nuts on the table and you do it. And if you don't, shut your mouth. Kind of like when it's if it's criticism, like, hey, I think you're wrong, you're fine. But when you're just having a moan because your daughter or son isn't ranked where you think they should, go argue with your mother. Like, just go argue with somebody else. I'm sorry.
And honestly, like, as I've told lots of people, like I must have heard from probably 15 people this past week.
Yeah.
Like within the last 5 days.
I keep hearing. So what's funny is a lot of people will blame me/you for other things. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute now. Unless I put my name on it, don't freaking tie it to me now.
Well, and I got one. It wasn't even from Joey Sequoia, but I got an email from somebody saying Tyler should have been on the pound for pound big board for Georgia. And I'm like, we didn't do that.
Shout out to Boys and Grappler. That wasn't us. Bro, Commerce people lighting me up because they thought I did the 1A team rankings that they posted where they had St. Francis ahead of them. And I was like, don't look at me. Not me.
Oh, was that Grappler?
What?
Was that Grappler too?
Yeah. I was like, bruh.
Yeah. So, but I should say this, like it's really fun. Like 99% of the people who respond are nice, and they're,
most of the time it's all in good fun. Like most of the time it's good spirited, all in good fun. It's the 1% that want to smell their own farts. And I'm like, all right, bro. Like, well, what are we doing? Like, what do you want about? Like,
all right. So this week we get the opportunity to drop one of my favorite things, and that is a Hammers of the Week. And the Hammers of the Week, I want to make sure we're very clear about kind of the way we do this. So when a season starts, I send an email to all the coaches, and I get a response from the coaches, and I ask for one kid from each team to one kid, one boy, one girl. Sometimes they submit one, only one. And they give me feedback, and we post them. And it always brings up a little bit of confusion because, first, in that situation, we're not picking the Hammers. The coaches are selecting them. Number two, sometimes the coaches don't really want to have to select between 3 kids, so they send all 3, and I just pick one. So in that case, I guess I'm kind of picking one, but that's the way that works. And then the other part is that the coaches define what a hammer is, not us. Right?
Yeah.
And for me, because it's about the promotion of the sport, I like to promote kids who don't normally get a whole lot of like shine or a whole lot of and I gave Georgia Grappler a little bit of a hard time because I said, shouldn't Dom Bambinelli be on the cover of the pound for pound? And And Cody was right? He gets plenty of shine. Landon Jones got the cover, and that's fine. I just was kind of poking him a little bit. But the point is
Yeah.
that for the hammer part, I suggest giving it to kids who, don't normally get a whole lot of a lot of love, that sort of thing. But one thing we're doing this year is that you're gonna pick one boy and one girl, and I'm gonna pick one boy and one girl from each state each week that we think had pretty good weeks in terms of their wrestling and everything else. We don't have the inside story. We don't know how hard that kid worked in practice. All we can see for the most part is the results. Sometimes we're at events, but a lot of times we're not at events. So, Lucas, why don't you kick us off in the state of Alabama with your boys and your girls?
So both of mine come from the Southeastern duels this weekend, held by Thompson. That was the tournament that looked like to me it had the biggest or had the deepest kind of pools in play. On the boys' side, Central Carroll was there.
Mm-hmm.
For the state of Alabama specifically, my girls won. Comes at Hewitt Trussville. Man, Catherine Grigsby had herself a weekend. 5-0 on the weekend. Looked really, really impressive. And not to say it wasn't expected, but a couple of her results I kind of looked at and I was like, oh, okay. I thought that match would have been a little closer. But she handled business. And on the boys won. It's got to be Kiowa Vines. He looked nearly unbeatable this weekend. Just Ada Thompson. I know we just talked about it didn't get as much shine, but I got to give it where it's due, man. He looked phenomenal. So, quick shout out to the two of them. Those are mine for the state of Alabama this weekend.
So, and you don't know this, but my state of Alabama was Catherine Grigsby. Which is interesting because there were a few girls tournaments we could have selected from.
Yeah.
And you and I both came up with the same individual. I don't know if we're using the same kind of metrics in our heads or whatever. And that's the only one we actually agreed on all 6 of them. So
makes
that's
sense.
the one we agreed on. And I actually went with Kiowa Vines' teammate, Jordan Welton, who Jordan has sat behind a few people over the course of his career. He had a really good weekend. And honestly, Thompson at Southeastern Duels, they wrestled tough. And again, we put it all in context. It's very early in the season, but they came to compete.
But they boat raced Central Carroll.
They did. Now Central Carroll was missing a few kids, but still.
Yeah. And I say that knowing that saying that I'm gonna get heat from the lion as you
a big sign.
Again, oh my god, I am scared of what they're gonna do this year. Beyond that.
Hey, I will say this. Everybody who's listening, right? You say we're sleeping. I'm expecting to get a pillow in the mail, that sort of thing. If we say you got boat raced, just tell me where I can pick up my boat.
Fair play. And please name it Scrappy. Moving on.
All right,
lovely.
It's
already off the rails. We're not even out of the first segment of the show, and we're off the rails.
No doubt. Jump over to Georgia and tell me who your 2 hammers for Georgia were.
So this weekend in Georgia, of course, last invitational girls. I'm gonna fight someone, okay? And I'm gonna start calling people out. And I love Cochran at Villarica. I love that dude. You guys who have tough girls, Greenbrier, Harrelton, and you don't have brackets anywhere. I hit you up for brackets and I can't be found. For God's sakes, if it's paper brackets, could someone take a picture and email anything?
Yeah.
Especially when you have the 2 best teams in the state of Georgia in attendance and there's matchups I want to see. Just, for goodness sake. What's going to happen is I'm going to put my rankings out and there's going to be someone beat someone at that tournament and I didn't see it and I'm going to get yelled at and told that I'm a C student. Well, beyond that.
C's get degrees, baby.
C's get degrees. Moving on before I blow a gasket about that. And when someone yells about me not knowing matches, I'm just going to link them back to this tirade. Beyond that. On the boys' side, I'm going to Lassiter and a lot of really great performances. Give me Ryder Gibson out of North Paulding. That kid puts himself on the map. Like it's one of those things where it's he just decided it's him and Landon Jones both have decided, oh, I'm just gonna be really good at wrestling. And he's beat a lot of really good cats. Super 32 qualifier had a great performance, looked good over the rest of the offseason, comes in the Lassiter invite and wins it in pretty good fashion. Looked
Yeah,
really, really good.
I agree.
Then on the girls' side, I'm gonna make a pick here. Call me a homer, argue with your mother. At a lumpkin, I'm picking Nora Garbazovas. I don't care. She looked really, really good this weekend. Dominant in a spot where I thought her semis and her finals would have been a little bit closer. Absolutely dominant. And speaking of Lumpkin County, I'm gonna say this. Every girls team in the state, you better watch out. Because it's one of those things, man. They got her, Gwynny, Bretta back in the lineup much
Brett's back in
earlier
the
than I
lineup. Yeah.
much earlier than I expected. Hayden's Grolla in the lineup, and they got some sleepers in the rest of that lineup. Don't let them get everybody down to where they want to be by duels. They might be a problem. But Hammer specifically of the week, I'm going to pick Nora this week. She looked incredible.
All right. So we don't pick a hammer for the team race or anything like that, or a team hammer, but I
just
want
wanted to make a point on
no,
Lumpkin. Yeah.
no. I'm glad you did, because it actually led into, I want to mention Creekview. And out of all the teams at Lassiter, Buford took the title, but Creekview finished ahead of Woodland. They finished ahead of Mill Creek. They finished ahead of Jefferson. They finished ahead of North Paulding. Okay. They finished ahead of Lassiter. I mean, Creekview came to wrestle, and that is pretty awesome. Now, again, all within context, but still.
Obviously, early in the year. But just for the sake of brevity, they actually broke a record in my matrix. They have the highest singular jump from one weekend of wrestling in a score. They jumped 2.8 points in one weekend. So
Well,
not only did their team finish incredibly high, they had individual upsets and performances that my matrix was not ready to handle. So shout out to Creekview for sure. They wrestled really good.
well, and my girl of the week in the state of Georgia is what? Ariel Macon? Macon?
I believe it's Macon, but that
So
could be wrong. I'm not sure.
she wrestled really, really well on her way to the 155-pound title, and she is the hammer of the week for me. Somebody to watch, somebody that wasn't on my radar at all, and definitely came to compete. And then on the boys' side, I think this person is going to play an important role through the course of the year, and it also comes from Lassiter. And look, I mean, you had Dom Bambinelli and Kate Parent. You had Emil Nekula beating Jace Parent, which was a fantastic match. You had Landon Jones, Connor McCloskey, a potential state final in the first week, first final of the year, right? So and Aaron Reiner wrestled fantastic. You could go down the list of some really, really good results, really, really good wrestling going on at that tournament. But for me, Hudson Danielson had 3 falls and a tech fall at 150. And you know what? He could be an important piece of the puzzle if Buford's going to make a run in Georgia.
Some would say this, and I might actually agree here. He might just be the X factor. If he could provide solid performances when they need him, hang on in matches, or if he could turn into one of those guys that can pull an upset when needed, he might just be the X factor. Like, not to say I'm moving my pick off of Camden, right, by any means, but Buford looked good. Buford looked better. They looked better than I expected.
Well, and a Buford team that didn't have Gorman, didn't have McCormick, didn't have Matt
with everything that you might assume, they're not ready. Hey, So all I'm gonna say is, hey, well, we might be looking at something here coming up. But beyond that, I agree. Shout out Hudson Danielson. He wrestled good.
All right, so let's jump over for our final group of hammers and your hammers or my hammers, and let's go to the state of Mississippi because they started not a whole lot on track wrestling. I know it's over in the Facebook land as far as some of
Yep.
that information. I don't. I only knew of one, but you know of more.
So there actually is, if you go on the track and you go to the OPC, look up Mississippi, it had a lot of stuff on there.
Okay, all right.
So
I think I
of
just went to
course,
events and looked at the events.
yeah, no, I did the same thing first too. Then for you know what, and a giggle, I just said, "Oh, let me look and see," and I was like, "Oh, this has everything." But real quick, I'm just shout out Oak Grove boys team, first ever duels. They went and beat the brakes off of East Central, and then took care of business over St. Andrews Episcopal. Um, a really just a good couple of duels for them. Tupelo Starkville had their dual tournament. Uh, but my hammers specifically, on the boys' side, it's got to be Franco Claudio, man, out of St. Andrews Episcopal, goes up to Memphis in a tournament against a couple really tough Tennessee cats, goes up and wins up at heavyweight. Looked real good. And it's going to be big for St. Andrews if they want to make a run. He's going to be important for them. On the girls' side, lots of possible options. I'm going to go with Ocean Springs 8th grader Jayla Anderson, who wins the Gulf Shores kickoff at 120 pounds. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, 8th grader. That's the nutty part. And what I love about Mississippi is they're the Wild Wild West. You had Paige Garner wrestle for St. Martin. She's a 7th grader. They don't care about nothing in Mississippi. They don't care, and I love it.
It's a little bit like Florida, and it's like you said last
Oh,
week.
it
Other thing,
shooting from
you
the
can,
hip.
you can sign
I
the
love it.
consent. You can sign the consent. You're old enough to wrestle.
Exactly. So just wanted to say that. But yeah, so for me, my hammers have got to be Claudio and Jayla Anderson.
So I didn't know a whole lot as far as those events. So I saw Ocean Springs and I saw Jayla. So she is actually the mine as well. I didn't realize that we had a double up there, but I went with Heisman Murphy as the Mississippi boy from Ocean Springs who
He
had
looked good.
it as well. And you know what?
He
I mean,
did. He
the name Heisman, right? I mean,
incredible. Franco Claudio. Oh,
Franco
what
Claudio
a
from
name.
Mississippi.
I would have thought Brookstone, New Jersey.
Right. That's what I'm thinking.
I would have thought he's from Brick Memorial or something.
All right, so let's jump over to before we do some of the season previews and stuff like that. Let's jump over to a little bit of D2, a little bit of love for the logo on your shirt.
Shout out Conference Carolinas, man. Shout out.
Yeah, well, you know what? We have good D2 wrestling in the Southeast. We need to promote it as much as possible. I think it's only growing and getting better. And you know, looking at the list, we kicked off some good duels last week with some really 1-point matches. Your Emmanuel Lions losing by a point. I think he beat Abby by criteria.
Yeah, that was criteria.
It was
man, it was weird. It being on the mic for that was awesome, and it being my first home dual meet at Emmanuel, man, that place was rocking. The atmosphere of Franklin Springs. If you've never been to, and I'm saying this genuinely, if you've never been to an Emmanuel dual meet and you're in this kind of Northeast Georgia corner, you need to come out to one. It was booming from the 101 of the girls all the way up to the heavyweight of the boys. It was insanity. This weekend, 2 massive dual meets that could play a big factor in deciding the conference championship. I'll talk about the one that's my favorite of the week, and then maybe you go on to yours. Newberry at King Friday, November 17th. That one to me, the Tornadoes host the Wolves. I see a lot of really fun top 15 matchups in that one. So that's my favorite of the week. And by the way, 'cause someone asked me, I'm never going to pick an Emmanuel duel meet as my favorite duel of the week. Never going to. Just,
Yeah,
come on. I'm
that's
like,
good.
in fact, our boys are hitting the road for Coker probably as we speak. It's all love for the home team, but I'm never going to pick them for my favorite of the week, just for
Yeah,
reference.
that's great. And piggybacking off of what you said, if you haven't been to a Lander dual meet,
Oh,
the Lander crew, they face paint, they do all the different things. They're
oh, they
loud.
go bananas.
It is fun to watch, and I'm agreeing with you on the duel of the week of as far as one I would be watching, which would be Newberry versus King, because if both of those teams handle business earlier in the week, both teams have a chance to go 3-0 after Friday night's duel, and being 3-0 in the conference in duels. And I don't know that everybody knows this, but there's a dual championship in Conference Carolinas.
Yep.
So, and there's a dual tournament, and how you finish in duels puts you into is it four teams, two from the
I
west and two from the
believe
east?
it's top four. I believe it's top four. I could be mistaken because I don't even know the whole setup yet. But
But
and what's interesting is Newberry hosts Emory and Henry. They should take care of business.
yeah.
But man, don't King has got to travel to Mount Olive Wednesday night, and
Mhm.
that's going to be a great duel. And another one on that slate, just as well, that watch out for Bluefield and Belmont could be a sneaky, really good duel meet. That
Well, and the
could
one that I was going to highlight was Lander
oh
visiting Pembroke.
oh yeah, that could be a good one. But Belmont and Bluefield could play a part in deciding maybe who gets that number 4 spot. So
Yeah.
I feel like most of the pundits, if I'm me included, would probably say your top 3 is going to be some mix of Lander, Newberry, King, and then or Mount Olive, and then there's that second tier with Mount Olive, Us, I think are in that hunt, Bluefield, Belmont, Pembroke. Like the conference is deep. There's a lot of teams I think to make that kind of 14 playoff. So it'll be fairly interesting to see how some of those mid-tier kind of dual meets go. So Bluefield at Belmont, another one to watch for.
Well, I don't want to spend a lot of time on D2, the D2 wrestling race, but what basically we're saying to you guys is, and most of you are here to watch, our take on high school wrestling and things like that. But D2 wrestling within the Southeast is a thing, and it's got some really good former D2 or former high school standouts in the Southeast on these programs, and not currently wrestling, but yes, um, maybe in the future, right?
Hopefully. Oh, Brian,
Soon.
yeah, soon. I think at the latest, it'll be funny. It's either going to be I wrestle at Life U, depending on my, and if not that, I'll be wrestling at the U.S. Open, and that'll be my first tournament back. And then from there, we'll kind of just go to some opens here and there.
All right, so
Yeah.
let's move to we are dropping season previews for the rest of the group this week on SE Wrestle. And I'm going to let you kick off the state of Mississippi with just a general,
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 headlines.
Okay.
So just so everybody knows, if you didn't watch last week, on the website, we picked a dual favorite, a traditional favorite, a weight class to watch, maybe, contenders, a dark horse, sleeper, all those sorts of things. We're
Yeah.
not gonna get into that detail here. I just want you to give me 2 or 3 headlines from the state of Mississippi.
Okay. Big headline for me. So, of course, if those who don't know, this will be the 3rd year consecutively that it is a MHSAA or MHSSA, I believe.
Yeah, I always get confused. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is it's 3rd year this has happened. Van Cleve will be looking to be the first team to repeat a dual title. You picked when it comes to duels, you're picking Ocean Springs as your favorite. I'm picking the Bulldogs of Van Cleve. I feel like that's probably the most interesting headline is the two of them. I feel like to this point, I don't want to say it's a 2-horse race, but it looks to be that it'll be Van Cleve and Ocean Springs most in line to make a run.
Yeah, well, and that's why I picked duels, or that's why I picked Ocean Springs, because if you look at the two of them, boy, they look very similar.
Yes, no, agree. I think they're both really, really solid programs with a lot of guys that could make a run. And then on the girls' side of things, we both have the same dark horse. Picayune, man. They have enough girls, and I don't think they could put a full lineup together. But their OPC, I think they have like 9 or 10 girls weighed in. If they could get those 9 or 10 girls across the lineup, when it comes to traditional time, man, we first off we might see a couple of their girls in the All-Star dual meet, which I think is instead of doing what Georgia does and having a girls dual state tournament, they'll pick a all-star dual matchup of girls from the north part of the state and girls from the south part, which I think is really cool. But Picayune is the dark horse, man. I think on the girls' side, they could for sure make a top 4 run.
Well, with St. Martin being the favorite, and on paper, I think they're a pretty clear favorite. Would you agree with that?
No, for sure, I'd agree. I think St. Martin right now, they are your clear favorite. Satilla and Ocean Springs, though, I think if they help each other out, like they would need to both knock off girls separately for even. It's gonna be one of those things where it's basically St. Martin versus the field in the sense that if anyone wants to beat St. Martin, they're gonna need to help themselves and help the rest of the state.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. So I apologize to Mississippi because we typically like to get out before the season starts. Their season started officially, but there was a lot of kind of junior high kind of matches. There was a lot of,
I think this week they have their first like tournaments. I could be wrong. I could entirely be wrong, but I think this week, I want to say Mendenhall hosts the tournament. I could be wrong, but I think this is the first week where, like I said, you have tournaments going on.
All right, so let's jump over to the state of Florida, and 3 headlines from the state of Florida. I think we'll go back and forth. So I don't really want to say South Dade and 3. I mean, I don't want to say that that's a headline because South Dade has been dominant within the state of Florida for so long. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, it's St. Andrews that hosts the tournament this weekend. I knew I was right. I knew there was one. Sorry, wanted to say that.
Oh, you're good.
Continue.
But for me, the storyline or the headline in the state of Florida is in 2A. And it is the fact that Tampa Jesuit has some freshmen coming in who are outstanding. And Gibson has had their numbers since all the Crooks graduated and
What was it? That COVID year, 2020? Was that?
It was I think it might have been 2021 because Crook
it might be the
year
next
in
year.
NCAA's as a true freshman. That was 2020. Yeah, so it was a couple of years ago. But I will say the fact that Gibson's there, Fleming Island's always there, but Jesuit, man. And Winter Springs, Jaden Robinson from Illinois moving into Winter Springs. I'll tell you what, you put Ryan Phillips, Eli Penton, Jaden Robinson, they get a few others. 2A could be outstanding.
Completely agree. And it's one of those things where, we're talking about Gibson and Jesuit. We're talking about Winter Springs. Let's not act like Fleming Island doesn't exist and Charlotte. Like 2A is, in my opinion, the deepest class in the state of Florida. And I don't even think that's necessarily a hot take, but man,
it could go lots of different directions. I agree. They have.
I love that you have Jesuit as your dual favorite, and I have Gibson, and then we have the flip traditional again.
All right, so
shows you just how wild 2A is going to be.
I agree. All right, so another one that I think is going to be really interesting to watch is 1A, because in 1A Sebastian DeGennaro's Jensen Beach crew, Falcons, for years have relied on Jewel Williams and Charlie Armstrong, lots of different individuals. They graduated a few of those. And I'll tell you what, man, you've got Cardinal Gibbons with Michael Mako. You got Somerset with Kendrick Hodge. You got Mater Lakes, who is just deep as hell. I mean, so many kids throughout those.
First Baptist with their crew.
First Baptist with their crew, right? And a bunch of young hammers for First Baptist. So I think if 2A is the headline and the one I'm watching, 1A is just is 1B, right below it. It is definitely the next.
Completely agree.
And it's
completely agree.
Ton of fun to watch. South Dade 3A is going to be fun to watch, but man, South Dade's just so good. In fact, they've got to be one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the entire Southeast, in my opinion. I know I'm telling you, I'm asking you off the top of your head.
No, I think they're top 5 for sure. I'll say top 5 for sure, because I have to look at it when I think there's a 2 that are here, and then I feel like the rest of the public schools are here, so I'd have to look at it past that top 2.
Yeah, and we are, just so everybody knows, we're including Lake Highland Prep in that group. So
yeah, which is why, like, I think it's Baylor and Lake Highland are 1 and 2. Take your pick.
Then you've got you've got Camden, Beaufort, South Dade, Cleveland. You've got lots of teams that who knows, and some of these, I mean, like Gibson, Tampa Jesuit, other teams are definitely in there as well. All right,
sure.
Anything to say about the girls in Florida before we move to the next state?
I want to see if any of these teams could put together enough of a unit to challenge Matanzas. I'm curious to see if one of them can put enough together. And what I mean by that is this. I looked at Orlando Freedom last year, and I thought they were the front runners because they had enough. But then they graduated some. You look at Hernando. Do they have enough outside-wise? Oakleaf, they have that. Oakleaf has a couple that maybe are unbeatable, but do they have the actual numbers? So I'm intrigued to see if someone could put enough together in numbers to challenge Matanzas. Now, that's where my headline is Matanzas comes in. I don't want to say that they're heavy favorites, but because I feel like it's still competitive, but it's
I think if they
you get what I'm saying,
I think if they do what everybody expects them to do, it's going to be a really narrow path for everyone else, because
I think that's a good way to put it.
They have the guns, right? And if they slip up, now the conversation might be who can step in and fill that void. But if they don't slip up, I just don't know that there's a team that can beat them.
I kind of feel like it's almost the same thing we were talking about with like someone's going to need to help. I feel like the same thing here. The only way someone beats Matanzas is if Hernando, Oakleaf, Gulf Breeze, Dade, Middle, and all these teams, if they all chip away at them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's going to have to be chipping away as a unit, and then one of them is going to find their way in. But otherwise...
taking out a Kendall Bibla in the semifinals doesn't score like champs points.
Yeah, otherwise, it's going to be Matanzas boat racing everybody.
Yeah. All right, let's move to the state of Tennessee, and they're getting ready to kick off. And let's go with, I don't know. So I think, again, it's pretty easy in terms of 2A. Cleveland is going for, I think, number 7 in a row or something like that. They are way above.
7 or 8.
We add in Summit and Knoxville Halls and Dobbins Bennett and other teams, but Cleveland seems like they're pretty far ahead. Baylor, maybe, but Father Ryan beat them at the duels last year, so maybe they're not as far ahead. For me, the one that's interesting is 1A, where I think I think it's dark.
1A could go 10 different ways. I'm so serious. 1A could go so many different ways. I'm so confused with 1A because my mind tells me Pigeon Forge. My gut yells at me Signal Mountain. My right arm tells me Saudi Daisy. my bum decides to jump in the mix and say Gibbs. So I have no clue. I'm waiting to see. Yeah, 1A might be, I'm gonna go on a limb. 1A might be the deepest class in the entire Southeast.
Whoa. Yeah, well, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty. Although Georgia 3A might be the same level of uncertainty.
I agree, but if you tell me you have Tullahoma finishing in your top 5 in 1A, I believe you.
Yeah. No, I tell you, the team for me, I think, and I put it down on my thing is, I think Saudi Daisy is going to be a team to watch, but I can't like.
Oh,
How
they're
in
going to be
the
a problem.
world? How in the world do you pick against a Signal Mountain crew that has JoJo Urachuk and Ethan Urachuk and the rest of that crew? Houston Clements at Signal Mountain's doing a fantastic job.
Like
That team is in the
pick
hunt.
Pigeon Forge for duels. You do it like I did. I picked Pigeon Forge in the duels. Like
Yeah.
you just do it. But I agree with you though. It's gonna be one of man. Yo, where is Tennessee State duels? Where and when? I want to know. I now want to go to this.
So I think that the state duels are in Franklin, just south of Nashville, and I'm not 100% sure when they occur. But you're right. I'll tell you what, we'll figure it out, and if we can make it work, we'll
Yeah,
work.
that might be one where we take the trip together and go
You
watch
see it?
those.
All right.
I'm in.
And then the other question in Tennessee would be for me is anyone going to challenge Cleveland in the girls' side? Coach Boskin's got man that crew going. They're going to the knockout. We're going to see Cleveland versus maybe Matanzas. I think they're on the list. I mean, the girls' tournament down at the knockout is going to be fantastic with the addition of Cleveland, and Cleveland is a squad on the girls' side.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. I don't want to say that it's a man. I feel like all the teams on the girls' side in Tennessee, other than Cleveland, they're all they don't have enough in the sense of numbers. What Cleveland does really well is they've put out a full line the past 2 years.
Yeah,
They
I
can
know.
put out where like Rossview will have a hole or two, Clarksville, same thing. It's almost not even a matter of guns. It's more an issue of do they have the numbers?
Well, and I think in that neck of the woods, the a new school opened, and you've got like who's going to go to this school, who's going to go to this school, who's these sorts of
Yeah.
things, and
But like what I think is so it's not an issue of guns because I want to be sure I know the school I'm talking about. I want to be sure I'm saying the right school. So give me a split second, everyone. Like this isn't like in certain situations where it's like, okay, a team doesn't have enough guns per se, or they don't have enough like that's not the issue for once. Because you look at I want to say it's West Creek, man, that had 3 or 4 girls in Tennessee who's number 1 and won their matches.
yes, West Creek did.
Okay, so it was West. Okay, so I was right. So you look at West Creek, they had 3 girls win it. Who's number 1? The problem is their team might only be 6 or 7 girls in total.
Yeah,
So they're
I
not
don't even
winning
know.
so that's the problem. It's can someone have the guns while having 10, 12 girls to even have a fighting chance at Cleveland? And that's where I think Boskin does it better than anybody nearly in the country. And I'm willing to say, at least at this point, my answer is no.
Well, and I will say just Montgomery Central is a team that you might want to keep an eye on. Audrey Lebowski is super talented as well. All right, let's jump over to the state of North Carolina, and this will be our last state preview in terms of. So I love so. So you don't follow state of North Carolina as well as or as closely as I do.
I'm trying to get into it. I keep saying it. North Carolina's my blind spot, ladies and gentlemen. So
3A for anyone who doesn't know became much more interesting. Ford has dominated in recent years. Union Pines and Pisgah and others have been really super close. But for anyone who doesn't know, in the state of North Carolina, Dominic Blue, who was a state runner-up at Scotland, and maybe he played football at Scotland this fall.
I believe so, because I think I saw the
Has
Instagram post.
enrolled at Union Pines.
Oh Lord.
And I think his dad got a job at Union Pines, so it's a legitimate move. He just moved to Union Pines. He's going to school or whatever. And so the biggest question I have, if I'm going to go watch Union Pines, I'm in the state of North Carolina actually today, so I might actually go see them. Is how they're going to fit all of their hammers up top into their lineup because
Yeah, yeah,
Ron Sullivan,
that could be a
I think,
problem.
is a state returning runner up. He was at 70. Blue was at 70 as a runner up, right? And then you had Nicholas Mascalino, who was a state champ at 182, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, that could be an issue. So someone's gonna go heavyweight weighing in at 199.
Maybe, like, right? I mean, it's possible. You're gonna have to figuring out all the pieces is gonna be a challenge.
Yeah,
all right, so
uh,
yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just like, yeah, like that could be a real issue for him.
All right, so why don't we jump real quick? We're not going to talk very much about 2A or 1A. In fact, I'm not sure we're going to talk any about 2A and 1A. But let's jump down to the girls. First year of an official state title in the state of North Carolina for the girls. Lumberton won last year. But I will tell you, and this is one of the things I was super impressed about. The girls at Super 32, there were a lot of girls from North Carolina. The numbers jumped tremendously from years past to this past year. You had Leah Edwards, who made the podium at Super 32. You had state champs, previous state champs, not the official quote unquote. Although I want everybody to understand when I say quote unquote, because I mean, I think the bracket was just as tough last year as it's going to be this year. So I mean, it's just because of the designation of the state association approving it or sanctioning it. Otherwise, it's, they're a state champ in my book. But it's going to be really interesting to see how the girls play out in this first year.
Yeah, completely agree. I think for me, Lumberton are the favorites. Obviously, Havelock, super, super tough crew. Jack Britt, really tough. Man, Mount Airy, they have guns. They need enough. You got the girls aren't the issue. You have your studs. It's gonna be an issue of can they have enough numbers to really make a deep run.
Well, and we talked about it last week and maybe or a couple weeks ago, and that is what Jamie Hurl and Hope Horan typically are their 6 and 13 pounders on their boys team. And will they make the choice of staying on the boys to wrestle postseason? Because you can't split it this year. Last year you could split and wrestle both the girls state championship and the boys postseason. You won't get that chance this year. I can't. I mean,
no,
they happen at the same time.
Yeah. I feel like that's going to be the big. I think that's a really big question as well. It's man, I just love seeing more states bring the girls in officially. So it's going to be good to see it in NCHSAA capacity. It'll be really interesting.
I agree. And I'm going to finish with. I was walking around at Super 32. And I saw a few people and we're talking about 4A, and I was like, who do you think 4A's favorite is? And I said, I think that Mooresville's got like the most coming back. And somebody was like, Laney. And then somebody was like, no, Huff is going to win the 4A title. And I was like, oh, okay. So I don't think that there's much of a consensus about who is going to win in 4A.
I'll admit I'm on the Huff train. I'll admit it. From what I look at traditionally, man, they are going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Like, turn a lot and the guys that they're bringing in, if it falls into now, Mooresville is a monster, right? Obviously, but Huff, and especially the way that are they called regionals in North Carolina? What is their?
Yeah, so they are regionals. The weekend before the state tournament is regions in North Carolina.
So the way the regions break out, I feel like they break out more in Huff's favor. depending on the way the formula is dropped, that changes everything when you have a 4 breakout system. But I really feel like Huff is in a really good position to win traditional. Now, duels, I see Mooresville being the favorite. I think they'll edge them. I think their matchups are just better off for them. But in traditional, Huff could win it by 50. Like in traditional, it could be Huff has it wrapped up by the end of the placement round.
No way. No, that's crazy.
I could see it.
All right. So actually, I'm glad you brought this up because this is always an issue in the state of Florida. It's an issue in the state of Georgia, kind of, but there's only 2 sections. But in the state of Alabama, they seed the state tournament. And they don't do it in North Carolina. I think they do it for duels. They don't do it for
Mississippi seeds. Well, Mississippi seeds.
What do you think? Do you think that we should seed the state tournament?
So, yes and no, because it depends. Okay, I'm gonna be cocky for a minute. When Mississippi Wrestling Foundation was talking to me, one of the things they said they needed help with was seeding, and they wanted to bring you and me on to be a part of that and help seeding their state tournament. They understood that, okay, we're just coaches and people who are around it. We may not have the best eye on it. We need people who are independent. Okay, I want to word this gingerly. I don't want coaches seeding it. I think you're asking for problems to have. I'm going to throw an example. You know what? I'm going to throw an example that doesn't matter anymore. Having Nate Etheridge seed 7A my senior year. Oh, Nugan, do you think it's going to happen? Like what are.
Yeah, no. Well, Alabama doesn't have the coaches seeded. It's the state association that seeds it.
That's what I was to say is I don't want it in the hands of GHSA either. Hang on now. Hang on. Let's wait a minute. I might be better off with coaches actually at that point. Or we might be better off with a blind squirrel. But either way, if it was a committee of some sort, why not? I'll throw this out there. I'll throw this out. If you're gonna seed it, why not bring I'm gonna say people like, oh, why not bring the people around the sport, like people in the ATA and the media together?
No, I agree. The thing that I think that you would have to do. So one of the things that Alabama requires is all results are posted, right?
Yes, which needs to happen.
So now seeding the tournament is much less difficult once we get to the end of the season. Now it's still not simple because not everybody wrestles everybody.
But do you know what my thing is with that? It doesn't even have to go on track. I would be very okay if it was at the end of the season, we go on track, and when you go to OPC and you click it and it says, all right, click. If you just click on the event and it was uploaded pictures of the brackets, that would be fine too. Because I understand the argument I have, and I've heard this from people. Well, my school, we can't really get access to track. Well, then have someone upload the picture somewhere. Just have it somewhere. Then we could seed it. And then it doesn't have to be a formula that's randomly generated, which is where people get issues. When you look at North Carolina, I'm assuming it's a formula that puts them in place.
I think they use rankwrestlers.com for the duels. I don't know. I assume it's a formula for the Mid-East champion, the
I would imagine
the Midwest champion, the West champion, and then they mix it all up like they do in Florida. But I don't actually know. So
I would say either seed it or go to 2. And at least if you go to 2, then it's okay. You're going to place top 8, 16-man bracket, 1 versus 8, 2 versus. It at least makes it easier on that front.
All right, let's finish this up with one tournament. Is there an event this week that you're most looking forward to watching? You're gonna have to look.
Let me see. Yeah, I want to be sure that the tournament I'm thinking of is this weekend because I couldn't entirely be mistaken. I just want to be clear. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I am actually most interested in the K-Town Throwdown in North Carolina because again, I'm trying to get better at tracking North Carolina. So when I look at the teams, URE Charter, Mount Pleasant, I think. A.L. Brown, obviously. There's a couple other teams. I'm interested in seeing them all together. So that would probably be my pick.
Okay.
Iron Maiden on the girls' side for Georgia. Want to
Iron
throw that
Maiden
out
on the
there?
girls' side in Georgia is always traditionally a pretty good tournament.
Yeah, I wanted to, because I forgot if Iron Maiden was this. That was the one. I was like, is Iron Maiden this week or next week? That's what I wanted to
And
check
then
out.
the other one for me is like the Gulf Coast Clash down in Mobile. Usually has Louisiana schools and a couple other different schools. It's a shame that it's so close to Florida and Florida hasn't started their season. So I don't know that we get any Florida schools that come over to it. But typically we do see some Georgia schools down at it and that sort of thing. And then just so everybody knows, anybody who's watching, next week is a little chaotic because obviously it's Thanksgiving. Lots of wrestling actually happens when we typically do this of the our conversation. So we haven't actually had that conversation yet. I don't know exactly when we'll film to be able to do that, but look for an episode next week sometime, and whether it includes, whatever it includes, we'll figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, kind of TBD on that one. It might be a late week episode. It might drop on a Friday.
Yeah, it might be past Thanksgiving, that sort of thing. So anyway,
Yeah.
all right, man. I hope you have a great week. Best of luck to Emmanuel and the rest of Conference Carolinas. Best of luck to everyone kicking off their season. And any final words?
Not really. I'm excited, man. Should be a good week.
All right, you guys take care.